yeah. So this is an interesting conversation because like I am not doing this for like a normal podcast. We're just like doing it for the love of the game, almost like you're not working for effect. I'm not plugging effects. I'm not usually talking about AI, but this is not about AI. This is about programming paradigms or whatever.
Heck yeah.
So like, okay, we're gonna talk about effects. You shipped Vercel domains using effects. Did you do something else before Vercel domains with effects?
Uh, there are bits and pieces inside Vercel that I introduced effect to. There's a couple other teams that have used it for odds and end things, but largely over the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, um, my team and I basically rewrote all of the registrar services inside Vercel, which is um, one of our oldest products. It's like 8 years old. So it spanned like 12 different microservices internally. Um, had a history of causing a lot of customer support tickets. During this, we also swapped to another upstream registrar partner. But yeah, we rebuilt it all on top of Effect, both on the server side and also using Effect Atom, which is their kind of React, not even necessarily just React, but kind of their like state management solution that integrates with the ecosystem in the UI, kind of similar to Jotai.
Yeah, interesting. I actually didn't even know about effects Atom.
It's
Which is like,
not formally part of Effect 3.0, but it will be officially part of Effect 4.0 when that comes out, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months.
okay, interesting. Okay, so I'm going to start a bit high level for people who don't have a ton of in background, but then also like I am checking my own knowledge because I think like my knowledge may be out of date. So for those who don't know, I'm going to screen share a bit. This is effect.website, right? It used to be called Effect TS. Now it's just Effect. And the idea is that you would take a lot of like the normal sort of error handling and turn it into what is like explicitly tracked as side effects. I used to work in Haskell, which I think like closely maps to this. If you also know FPTS, basically this is the spiritual successor to FPTS, where it would force you to handle things, but then also like maybe standardize in a single API, something that it would be a lot more declarative in normal JavaScript, TypeScript. Is that a good description? Would you change anything else?
I think categorizing Effect as a purely functional programming thing does it a disservice. I think it certainly comes from functional programming roots. Like Julio, who worked on FPTS, is one of the on the core team. That being said, I think there's pretty much just as many kind of like imperative or like maybe not imperative, but like kind of object oriented class esque APIs in the library and ecosystem. The way I like to think about Effect is more that it is kind of like a combination of like TypeScript's missing standard library and also something that can kind of fill the gaps of like what like Ruby on Rails or Laravel or Spring Boot would fill for the TypeScript ecosystem. It kind of brings all that. And as you kind of called out, like the APIs are very cohesive, very declarative in nature. I think a lot of the things it brings to the table is like a real focus on like resilience and error handling. It also has I think the feature that I was most skeptical of upfront because I was not sold on Effect the first time I saw it and wrote it by any means. But one of the features that has like made a significant difference in improving the way I build TypeScript software is its dependency injection system. It's used through this abstraction called layers. And like I would just think of a layer as a function that creates a service and then basically stores it in like a global map that you can retrieve at runtime. But yeah, you've come from Haskell. Effect is lazy, which brings a lot of desirable properties. I think, especially when it comes to dealing with concurrency, it brings a whole suite of structured concurrency tools. It uses the fiber model, which is the same as what React uses for its concurrency model. Yeah, you can basically spin off thousands of these fibers and kind of treat them the same way you would as like Go routines or something, or tasks in Rust or something. Obviously, by default, it's still single threaded, but there are like integrations with the workers module and kind of going across CPUs. Yeah, it's just like I've done a lot of conference talking in the past year about how I think like TypeScript is really, really hard to scale. And I don't mean in a technical sense. I think TypeScript is plenty fast for 99% of development. I think TypeScript starts to fail in scaling when it comes to scaling at the organizational level. When you start getting into these companies and engineering organizations where you have, you know, 5, 10, 20, 30 engineering teams, 100 plus developers um, throughout my career, and like having especially consulted and gotten to see a lot of different companies ranging from like fangs to startups and like everything in between, like consistently I see the same problems across giant TypeScript monorepos and engineering organizations that make maintaining and scaling TypeScript really difficult. So that's things like error handling, observability, sharing abstractions across code bases. Like you'll often find like you know, 5 different implementations of a mutex or rate limiting or things like that. And every single one of them has like some gotcha somewhere. So I think Effect is a good answer to all of those problems. And it's very much like Go. If you've ever written Go, like I don't feel the need to install many dependencies when I'm working with Go because I can just reach to the standard library and something's there for my problem.
Okay. That's a great pitch. I actually didn't know about all the talks, which now I feel like I should have watched them first before.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, for those who can see the screen, it is you spoke in the Effect Days, you spoke on the podcast, you another Effects Days thing. So like there's a fair amount of stuff here that people can talk about. It looks like you were already talking about domains at Vercel already 6 months ago, which is funny
We
because
were
like I only
we
huh?
were just starting to plan all the work we did at that point. So I actually watched that video back like a week or two ago, and it's funny hearing me talk about the things that we were planning for, and now like sitting where I am today, having seen like the other side of it and the success. Because like you know, using effect for like a large scale rewrite is like a risky move, especially inside an engineering organization like Vercel, and it certainly paid off. We have some of the best DevX inside Vercel. We have some of the best, if not the best, observability. Very easy to spin up a bunch of new admin tooling. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, actually like how do how do I see the how do I see the sort of the before and after? Let me see.
I don't know where to find the before, but vercel.com/domains is it's public now and not behind a paywall or anything. So
Yeah. So it's like all I know is it's fast, but like that's not the point of Effect. You know, it's like it's very weird to explain the yeah, okay, you know, it's got type as I type, it's good. Let's see. I love Effect.ai. Wow. That's cool. So yeah, what's going on here? Is this the primary thing I should be thinking about? Where is the retries and observability elements of what's going on here?
yeah, so I admittedly have I can I can still speak to much of the front end, but it was largely built by Ethan Nizer and Reese Sullivan. But under the covers here, it is using Effect Atom, and Effect Atom has a really, really good integration with Effect RPC. So, kind of the general architecture here is that we're managing kind of all of our state in that search page with Effect Atom, and then using the natural binding to Effect RPC, which we have an RPC client we generated from the server. And actually, we use WebSockets over RPC, or maybe it's more correct to say RPC over WebSockets. I'm not sure. That communicates back and forth that way. And there's retries and error handling and dependency injection baked into it the kind of the entire way.
Okay, so okay, I feel like there's like a little bit of like a discussion for me, right? You guys decided to introduce this into your code base. no one else company presumably knows effects. Maybe they've heard about it because you're a Vercel. But like the syntax is very alien. Nothing else looks like it's like how many times did I see effects? One effect, 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 right? And then I'm installing this weird library which like no one else in React uses, but like he says is close to Jotai. Like, okay, that's
Yeah,
just like
the mental model of how it manages state is very similar to Jotai.
and then you're also introducing this thing which is also weird. Like, I mean, so basically, like, is it is it an issue to introduce something that like the rest of your team doesn't know? I feel like one of the things that put me off, and I'm being 1,000% serious, is
Yeah.
just so much effect, 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 and then how you have to install a library for every damn thing instead of effect, right? This is what when I saw effect AI, I was like, man, I don't know, man. Like this sounds like just bloat of like libraries and stuff.
Yeah, so I can pick apart all of this because it's all incredibly fair criticism. I think the first thing I would say is the syntax. I mean, especially like you've learned Haskell, and like it's syntax
But
is
it's a language, not a library. This one's still a library.
that's
Yeah.
fair. My counterpoint would be like this is still all just plain TypeScript at the end of the day. This is all just TypeScript types. There's no compilation step. I mean, beyond obviously compiling with type, or I mean, you can run with bun and then there is no compilation step, but um, it is all just native TypeScript features. And realistically, 99% of the code you write ends up looking very similar to your async await code. You'll see this generator syntax, so you'll see your yield star, and you'll see basically um, that code inside of a callback function inside like effect.gen or effect.function. Your mental model there can be just replace effect.gen with the async keyword in normal JavaScript and replace yield star with await, and it just maps directly. As far as the verbosity, like that original example, like you could certainly remove the effect.effect. Like it's going to infer. In fact, one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot with effect is how insanely good the type inference is. Like the type inference through the entire library is on par, if not better, than libraries like TRPC, Drizzle, Prisma. Like it's table stakes to have that kind of, you know, type inference these days. And Effect certainly has it. Where else would I go with that? I mean, I can talk about like some of the verbosity. Some of it is necessary to
Model, you're
achieve
modeling the thing. Yeah, yeah, sure.
the type inference. So if you think about what an effect is, effect at like the very essence is a description of a program because it's lazy. And you can think about this as like you write an effect application. You are kind of like building up this tree or graph that describes a computation or program. And then at runtime, you interpret that tree. And a single effect has three generic parameters to it. It has its success value. If this computation succeeds, it will succeed with this type. It has its error type, which is if this computation fails, it will fail with this type. And then it has its requirements, which are basically like the dependencies that you need to provide to the runtime before it will run. And in fact, let's say I have a effectful function that's called send email, and I do like const email client equals yield star email client. That goes to the runtime and pulls in the implementation of the email client, and then I can use that. And there's a type associated with that. That type mapping is part of the reason some of the verbosity exists on the dependency injection side. So I can write that. And then if I want to go run my send email function, I can do effect.run promise. But it's going to yell at me and not compile and not run until I provide a actual implementation of the email client type. And you'll see if you were to look at like this send email function, that third generic parameter would have the type email client, and a effect will not run until you provide all the dependencies to get that third generic parameter down to never. So it tracks the usage of all your SDKs, all your dependencies, all your database clients, the whole way through the entire tree of your application. And it gives you every opportunity along the way to use different implementations, to use mock implementations, and it won't run until you actually provide like a real concrete implementation of it.
Does that get? I know that sometimes when like people go for full type safety, it means that like you it's hard to prototype because like you have to implement every damn thing before the thing will run. Is there ways to ignore it? Is there maybe this is an unfounded concern? I don't know. Maybe it's a skill issue.
I would actually say, I thought you were going to go down a different path with that, but you can actually write out a full program basically without implementing any of your dependencies, right? You can model the interfaces of all of your dependencies. Like you want to model out your email client, you can write the type, write what they call a tag or a service in Effect 4.0. You write an interface for that, be like, this is available to be dependency injected. And when you yield that, you get that type. But you don't have to implement that until you want to call run promise. So you can
Yeah,
basically write out, you can think
very
about
easy.
your
Yeah,
program
yeah.
in types and how you want to model this, and then come back later and implement it. And actually, that's one way that I've helped teach people Effect in the past is like, and I also think this could be a great way to onboard people is like, if you're kind of a more team lead or somebody that knows Effect on a team, you could write out like the types for a certain part of your program and write like the shell of what some feature needs to be and be like, hey, hand that off to, you know, a junior dev or a new member on the team and be like, do the implementation here. So it's quite nice for that. I think Matt Pocock has a tweet thread on this exact thing. I loved watching Matt discover Effect on Twitter because like I had originally started using Neverthrow, which is like the result type from like Rust ported to TypeScript. And I had worked a little bit with Matt on that repo and features that needed to be there. And like, I kept nudging Matt, be like, yeah, check out Effect. And so did all the Effect people on Twitter. And like, it went a couple months of him being skeptical to him trying it, to him like being completely sold on it and getting the light bulb moment. And then having a couple of these threads where it's like, oh, this is like super nice. Well, the dependency injection is like incredibly novel and like, yeah, it was fun to watch because like as everyone goes through that with Effect, like, getting to that light bulb moment, it was just fun to watch someone go from skeptic to like being like, oh, I see the value so publicly.
Yeah. Okay. So I need to sort of really dive in on the light bulb moment, but like for people who are also watching, Neverthrow is this thing. I've never heard of it. It sounds like a proto effect kind of. So if you like this, you'll like effects.
I would, even if you have zero interest in Effect, I would recommend checking out Neverthrow. I am a huge advocate of treating errors as values. I gave a talk at React Miami on treating errors as values rather than using like try catch and all the downsides to try catch and throw exceptions with type safety.
Yeah. Throw a try catch in what a title is this? Throw a try catch in the trash, level up your React error handling with the result type. Okay. That is so cool. Okay, awesome, awesome. Wait, so okay, so again, what was his aha moment or light bulb moment? Like among all this? Was
I
it a
think
section?
it was a combination of kind of like the error handling and being able to type all your errors and have that tracked through the type system. So like
Okay.
again, as you use effect functions and call other effect functions, the errors that can occur, because you don't throw anywhere in effect. You basically give all your errors. It's like kind of like if you're writing Go or Rust, it like forces you to consider the error path at every turn. And it's the kind of thing like at first that can feel annoying if you're not used to writing software like that. But like once you deploy something real that is written in that style of programming, you're just like, it's like pulling back a current you can't unsee. It's like, wow, like code is incredibly error prone and especially in TypeScript, uh, takes a lot of discipline to properly handle errors. And so this forces it on you. So, like as I was saying, as you call different effect functions and compose them together, the errors that can occur also union together in that second type parameter, the error spot. So let's say I call that send email function. Like under the covers is using the email client. The email client has like a send, and like say there can be a fetch error or there can be like an invalid email address error. Like those errors will bubble up, and you can let them keep bubbling up and they'll keep unioning to that type error, or you can choose to handle them like locally and map to a different error or handle like converting it to a success case or whatever that may be.
Am I looking at the right page? Is this error accumulation? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, let's see here. I admittedly do not visit the effect doc all that often anymore.
You've just entered the matrix and you know everything.
It's funny because like effect has a giant API surface.
Yeah, like how the hell do you memorize all?
I know the docs have come a long way from where they started, and they're from what I've heard they're getting a complete overhaul for 4.0. And we can talk about 4.0 here shortly, but the effect MCP server is really good. I found a lot of success in like actually like cloning the repo locally and just like asking questions of it to like Claude or whatever. But there's like only a handful of actually, you know what? There's only a handful of like functions that you really need to get started. And Kit Langton, who recently joined the team, has a really, really good website that might be a better starting point. Um, Let me see if I can find his effect stuff quick.
Did I find it already? Effect.kitlangton.com.
Yes, exactly. Let me come back to our screen here.
This is one of those show me. What's it got sound?
The sound is satisfying.
Okay.
Some useful ones like effect.all and some of like the error handling ones. You can kind of see what starts to happen here. And I think it will help a lot of people get the mental model quicker than like what maybe the normal effect docs would be.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. I love like all docs should have something like that with.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he went way overboard with this matching of the highlighting of the code. What the
It's
hell?
so good. He's so talented, dude. And he's hilarious. He's such a
He just did this for fun.
yeah.
Amazing. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah. I mean, okay. So I almost want to arrive at. We should talk about Effect 4.0 because you marked that one. Is there an effects the good parts where or like a skill tree?
Actually, yes. It's not very fleshed out, but Ethan Nizer has been slowly working on it. Effect by example. I know that he's been wanting to do more work with this, and now that we've got domain shipped, maybe that will give some time.
Okay, what is it? Okay, it's a website. It's an open source. Okay, so this is. I mean, this is just a tutorial. It looks like.
Yeah. Like effect by the good parts, like everything's so good. It's like it's the kind of thing like it generally is like a standard library. Like there are parts of the Rust and
Look
the
at this, man! Like effect platform, effect platform node. Like I mean, like.
effect platform is a pretty novel thing. So
Oh, okay.
effect platform is a series of interfaces for doing common things like file system access or network calls or streams or all of these things. And then they're all interfaces, right? They're all types and interfaces. And then there are implementations for the browser, for Bun, for Deno, for Node, for Cloudflare workers. So you can basically write your code once using platform APIs. And then
And
when
it
you want
runs
to run
everywhere.
it, you just provide the implementation at the outer boundary of your application.
Okay, seems is very abstract, but okay. I mean, this is primarily okay. So if you want interrupt between Node and Bun and browsers, then you do this.
Right.
But
And the normal code you're writing is the same for any of them, even if the underlying like APIs or mechanisms are different.
Yeah. Okay, it looks very nodey because it has read file. I guess it doesn't have read file sync. Um, does it have unlink? It does not have unlink.
I would not bank on this being 100% up to date.
Yeah, okay. You know, I mean, like, unlink is a disruptive action, so maybe it's a little bit harder. Oh, it looks like it's remove. Oh man, yeah, okay, interesting. So they did not go for node compatibility here. Is this part of 4.0? I don't know if I've stumbled onto it.
Platform will be part of 4.0. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Most
Let's
of
talk about.
the like unstable beta stuff will be like official 1.4.0.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to recap before we go into 4.0, just because like obviously I mean part of me like this is like I have some understanding, and then I just want people to be able to answer all their questions. Okay, so to me, if the effect the good parts is very similar to what you just said, with like the sort of effects, the sort of the type propagation and forcing errors as values. I am meh on this generator thing. Sure, swap async await. Okay, piping is like nice. This is the functional programming part, but like again, not hugely changing my life. The retrying, this is where the temporal side of me comes in. Retrying and I guess it's primarily just retrying. Is there a module for like making the retry stateful, or like storing the retry so that it's turns into like
There is an effect workflow module that is technically beta, but will be 4.0.
interesting. It doesn't. I don't think it's mentioned here in the docs. Okay, well, we already established that the docs are not complete, but I think that is very key, right? Like that you turn client side or in memory retries into persistent retries.
Yep, agreed. That like I've been workflow killed since like man, maybe like 2016. I watched a conference talk. I can't remember what her name is. She's like a principal engineer at Microsoft now, and she was like working on Halo at Xbox at the time, and she did a conference talk on sagas. Like at the same time, like Redux was just happening, and like just that like mental model of like state machines and kind of having these like running event logs of state, kind of like what durable workflows are generally backed by. Yeah, that's how I've liked thinking about and building software, like basically my whole career.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That one, I fully bought in. People can see my previous temporal work for that stuff. I mean, that's good. It's just it has been too hard to set up until maybe Vercel solved it. Maybe not. I don't know. We talk about that.
Remains to be seen.
You guys, man, like using the directive was the most controversial bit. Actually, I think it was like okay. Side tangent on this whole use workflow thing.
Yeah,
I think that's not the issue. That's not. I have zero problem with use workflow. I have a problem that Vercel ignored the most difficult thing that every workflow implementation um, has, which is migrations. You have long running workflows, things are in flight, and how do you change things while they're in flight? Well, there's a number of ways. Vercel managed to ignore all of them. This is new because as of yesterday, when I typed it in the search, this it did not even have the word versioning. It's like they were like, what is that? I've never heard of it. But yeah, that would be my issue there. It's especially because this is what I call man. By the way, I use Google like this for like bring out my old posts. I always like criticize things based on this. Right? People always say like, oh, this is good DX, or this is not good DX. By the way, this is Netlify failing to render as felt. This it happens every now and then. And I I don't understand why. It's like a Heisenberg bug. Why is it? Why is it? Oh my god! I just have a visual. Okay, there we go. Right, like a lot of people when they say, "Oh, this is good DX," they're like, it's easy to get started. It's a few lines of code. Oh, they have great docs. Oh, they have great tooling. But actually, like then all the stuff that's ignored about like missing features and downtime and building and roadmap. These are like this is basically happy path and this is like sad path. And the
Yep.
sad path never gets answered. And like so part of the important sad path of a workflow is versioning because that's sad and ugly and nobody wants to talk about it.
My understanding is they chose to the versioning of workflows is pinned and you have to explicitly like note or mark. I don't know what that exact experience is. So it's basically there so you can't shoot yourself in the foot where you like replace the code of a workflow or a step while one's in flight and then like you get in this like very strange world of undefined behavior.
Yeah, I think that's the simplest, but like not telling people about it means that everyone trying this for the first time is going to run headfirst into this and then not know. But yeah,
I know that the team has been working nonstop on this, and a lot of effort went into getting the doc site up and running, like the couple of days and weeks before. So
this
I'd
is
also flag it's still in beta to give fairness to the team, but I know what the roadmap looks like for workflows, and like a bunch of that stuff's coming over the next weeks.
yeah. Yeah, okay. I mean, like, sorry, not to turn this. Okay, here's where it intersects a bit. Why not just be like effect pill everybody, right? Like, if like you like effect, if effects was first implementation in Vercel was successful, and like, look, there are obvious similarities between this workflow and effect. Why not just like endorse this?
I think that well, one, I would say my team currently like domains was like the exploration, like, can this make sense? Does this make sense? And workflows also like workflows and that also started at the same time. And I would say that there is the people working on workflows at Vercel are fans of Effect. That being said, like I don't think at least where Effect is at today, I fully understand the polarizing look of Effect.
Dude, people can't even handle use workflow. They're not
The
gonna
funny
handle it.
thing is that Effect doesn't need a compilation step.
Yeah, they should love it. It works in the browser.
I think a really good example of how you really leverage Effect today is if you look at what Johannes Schickling's doing with LiveStore. All of LiveStore is powered by Effect under the covers, and there is a async await interface on top of it, so people building with LiveStore don't have to know that it's all Effect under the covers. I
Oh,
think
it's open
Effect
source.
really shines.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think Effect really shines for that, like really complex infrastructure type projects in TypeScript and Node. And like I know Johannes would agree with me.
Well, guess how I heard about effects in the first place? It's from this guy.
You probably Johannes.
He's like, effects devrel number 0. Uh, yeah, it's really great. Okay, so yeah, we talk about life story everyone. Okay, so sorry for the digression into
No, dude,
Vercel.
I'm down. Like I'm happy to geek out over all of this.
I mean, yeah, it's if people are listening, like, yeah, they're also in our world, right, of like caring about this stuff. I also I wanted to keep picking on like things that I appreciate about effect, which like these are the reasons I would reach for effect. I just haven't yet, but I mean I kind of get it. Requirements management, I genuinely haven't like super nailed it just yet. This is the layer stuff I think that you sorry.
This is by far the weirdest part of Effect, in my opinion.
Okay, help us with this.
So a layer also has the 3 channels, and a layer is basically like an abstraction that provides an implementation of a service. So the first parameter is the like type being constructed and supplied at runtime by the layer. Because layers can be created from functions and effectful functions, errors can occur when layers are being constructed. So this would be like at startup time of your application. And then layers in and of themselves can have their own dependencies. So you could imagine yielding like the file system from Effect Platform, and that would create a requirement on needing a file system implementation from Node or Bun or Deno or what have you.
Okay. Does this sound a little bit like Docker layer, I guess? I don't know. What is it called? It's kind of like you're setting up your
Kind of. That's not, yeah, that's a, I would say it's a comparable mental model. I don't know like the exact semantics of Docker layers, but like what I do know of them and how I think of them, it's kind of similar. Like it's providing something to the ultimate or like the final container. So that seems like a decent comparison.
yeah. AWS Lambda also has Lambda layers, which is kind of cool ways to optimize to customize Lambdas. So you use this a lot? This sounds like a pretty advanced feature.
I would say it's actually not an advanced feature. It is like there are like 3 or 4 patterns in effect that like once you learn and see and like can just swallow the verbosity of it, like you're off to the races running. Like everything is just the same over and over again. So like the perceived learning curve of effect feels like this like exponential curve, but really it's kind of like this and then it evens out pretty quickly.
All right, let's draw. Let's draw. I'm a drawer. So there's this thing on the landing page which is like a complexity with effect without effect. So like he acknowledges that it with effect it's higher at the start and then over time it goes. This is a beautiful chart. You're saying like I'm here right now. Uh, and then maybe this is like I don't know perceive effect. I don't know knowledge. I don't know what I'm drawing. I don't know what the y-axis is, but like so basically you're saying like it's actually lower than you think, and then it maybe like scales like this.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's great. So and then you're putting layers down here as like actually you use this a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you said 3-4 things. Let's get the 3-4 things.
So I would say learning the effect type in general and like how to fail and succeed and like kind of like work with errors and effects in general. So like basically running effects, like you get a lot of the same APIs you would get from promises, like promise.all, promise.race, like those things. So learning just how to run them and then how to compose them together, you'll quickly find that like you might want to wrap things from like the outside world. Like let's say you sticking with the email example, let's say I want to use resend and I want to bring in their SDK. It is very easy to interrupt with promise-based code. There's a function called effect.tryPromise, which will basically take a callback function that is asynchronous and it will automatically wrap it with a effect. And you have the opportunity to handle the error there and give it a strongly typed error. Otherwise, it will come out typed as an unknown exception. So like the interrupt going from effect to async code or normal TypeScript code, super easy. And then on the flip side of that, if you're in async land and want to use effect code, it's as simple as effect.runPromise. And so interrupting between the two is very, very easy. And like incremental adoption then is very easy as well. It's not like one of these things where like you have to go all in on effect, and effect doesn't just like permutate throughout your code base. You can consciously constrain it down to like just a single function, just a module, just a endpoint, just a command line handler. So it's very easy to like isolate and give it a try.
Would you say that try promise like this is a kind of like a a stopgap, and then eventually when you are more comfortable with effect, you come back and replace it with something else.
Yeah, I would say like when you're getting started and you need to call like other clients or outside code, like try promise is what you're going to reach for to start.
Yep.
And what I generally see happen and like what I would guide people to do is start writing your own effect services that wrap that have like a effect first API, which under the covers will use effect try promise. But then you expose like I would wrap like the resend client with like an effect based API. And then in the implementation, under the covers, it's using try promise, but that's hidden away from callers.
Yeah, am I on the right page? Effect services. What is an effect service? I don't even.
Let me see if so like a context they call it tags in Effect 3.0. They're changing the name to services. Um, you can think of a tag as a key into a hash map where the key retrieves a implementation of a type. So the tag is kind of two things. And this is like why the syntax looks weird. And it's like this whole class extends thing and then a function and then like the class. It taking advantage of the fact that it's classes can create nominal types. So you're basically creating like this map key that also has a type associated with it. And then at runtime, you use that key, you'll say like yield star random, right? And you'll get whatever that implementation is out of the map. And because there's a nominal type or a type associated with that key, the TypeScript can infer that random is that type when you yield star it.
Effect number. Okay.
So you can see like up on line 6, that is the type associated with the random tag or what will be called the random service in effect forward. There's also like a effect.service that kind of replaces context.tag, and that's in effect 3.0. And it helps solve some boilerplate.
Okay. I feel like providing random as the example here, it
I
makes it a
know,
bit
dude,
hard.
don't even get like
Yeah.
I wish let me see if I can find so much my code is not public that I've written. Can I show some of this?
I mean, like I have encountered these problems before. It's just, it's not like in my recent memory cache. So like I have to really think very hard to like even come up with what's a useful example for this. But like,
I do have a repo I can show that has some.
okay, you have one?
Let me I can share my screen here.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm sure, let's do a resend client, like put it in a docs. I don't know. If you don't want to like mention a vendor, like you can, do like simple resend.
All right, here we go. See my screen. GitHub. So here.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah,
so I have like this
Arc enjoyer.
budget.
Yeah. You're also an Arc enjoyer.
I am. It's been so dude, I can't leave it. I can't. It's like
It's
spaces are
coming
too
to
good. Okay. So where should I start here? We'll start with this budgets and clients. So like the premise of this is like my wife and I before we joined finances, we both used you need a budget, which is like a budget
Yeah,
SaaS
YNAB.
product. Yeah, YNAB. And then we also use Splitwise for splitting transactions and like shared expenses. And so I wrote this tool to basically like sync the two. Let's see, let's look at the Splitwise client. So I code genned like the client.
Can you zoom in like three,
Yes.
4 levels? It's a bit hard to, yeah.
Let me put on my glasses too. Jeez. So this is just like a normal, basically TypeScript class with promises, nothing super fancy here. Like I generated this code from using an open API spec. So this is just like the normal client. These are the functions I need. And they're all just, this is just normal async JavaScript. And then I wrapped that in effect. And so I came in, I was like, okay, what do I want my like actual API for the effect version to be? And it's basically just a mirror of the other client I wrote, but we're returning effects here rather than returning promises. So down here is this tag, right? So here I'm basically saying like, hey, I'm creating this service that I want to be able to use at runtime. And it's going to have this type of iSplitwise. And that is literally just like this interface we just looked at. And then down here, I have this function called create service. And this creates an implementation of basically that that iSplitwise type. So I come in here, I grab some config, which this config module is basically like it reads in stuff from like the environment or your process, right? Like environment variables. There's a little bit more to that, but this just creates the normal TypeScript client. And then there's this pattern that like is pretty prevalent in the effect community. Like I hate using the word use, but it's like kind of the use pattern where you write this function that takes a function and you provide it like the promised based version of whatever code you're wrapping, and then you wrap it with try promise. So we'll just call whatever function inside try promise. We'll pass it the like async await version. And the other nice thing is like interruption is baked into all of effect. So you don't have to like manage abort controllers and signals and like drill them through your entire application to do interruption correctly, which nobody does. And then if there's an error in any of the functions, I just wrap it and catch it in this typed error called Splitwise client error. And in this case, I have an exponential backoff and I wrap it with a open telemetry span called use Splitwise. And then like the implementation of these functions, like get current user, I just call that use Splitwise function we just described right here. We get our promise based client. I call client.getUser, get our promise back. If we get an error, reject. Here, current like effect schema is basically like Zod. And like this is it. Like that's how you wrap a non-effect client. And then you end up returning it down here. Um, where's my return? Right here, this matches that I splitwise thing. And then layer from config, this is how I return that layer type we were looking at earlier. And that provides the actual implementation that is probably provided up here at the top. Yeah, dependencies. I guess there's a budget sync layer. So like everything's composable too, which is another really nice part of this. Where's that budget sync? Like here are all the errors that can occur when I try to sync between the two applications. And each one of these has different retry characteristics. Maybe I can't retry. Maybe I want to like log. Maybe I want to kick off a different background job to try to recover or clean up like a database row. So it truly makes you consider all the ways in which your application and code can fail.
Did you write this from the Open API spec, or did you
Uh,
discover this?
This part, no, like this is like my own code. This is where I'm using both like the YNAB client and the Splitwise client and actually syncing between the two.
Wow. I mean, so you manually cataloged all these errors and you manually set retries on them and whatever else you needed to do.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, but at the end of it, you have a very reliable piece of software.
Yeah, so like the sync function is the thing that syncs between the two. So like I'll import my database here, right? Like this is just one of those tags or effect services. So I get my DB and that has a type associated with it. That splitwise client we were looking at, when I yield this, like it is typed as that. Like that type inference is passed the whole way through. And here I manually have my like return type annotated because I was trying to be intentional about what I wanted this function to do. But like you could return this and it would infer as the same thing. So you can see here, it can fail with that sync error. If it succeeds, we'll have sync results. And then for this to run, it needs to be provided an implementation of the database, an implementation of Splitwise, and an implementation of YNAB. So we drop into this. we call in the DB, get the budget sync and count by ID, pass in the ID. We can map the error to a different error if we get one. I mean, it really, like, I know yield looks weird and mapping the errors, but like, I really truly think this does look reasonably close to what normal async await code looks like. And
Okay.
yeah, it's as open telemetry and tracing the entire way.
Yeah, I would say that that is another plus we haven't got to yet on the observability side. Yeah. Okay. Well, so this is a public open source repo that people can look at as like what at least how you.
It is not, let me make sure that I don't have anything sensitive and I'm gonna move my screen quick. I'm gonna move this onto my other monitor real quick and make sure that I don't have sensitive.
Good to check.
Okay, we are good. I will make this repo public and post that.
Damn. I mean, yeah, no, look, more, I always learn by examples. More examples never hurt.
Change
Oh
visibility
shit, look at you open
required
sourcing right here.
to do it.
Wait, no, no, no. No, you hit cancel at some point.
Or did I? One, two, I've read.
Well, is it a bug? Oh, there you go.
A second here.
Oh my God, you're open sourcing right on stream. Okay,
There
I'll
we
take
go.
us back to like the chart. I always want to draw like a tech tree for effect. Yeah, okay.
There, drop that in there. So yeah,
Amazing. Like
that's
it's
kind
a
of like, that is like as crazy as 99% of the effect code you're going to be writing on a day-to-day basis will be.
I mean, that's exciting. I mean, it's not like look, okay. It is a lot, but
But you
it
also
is.
get a lot for it. That's the thing. And like when I first saw effect, dude, I had the same reaction as you. I was like, this looks horrible. There is so many APIs here. Like, what are these generators doing? Like, I was the same way, but I recognized enough in it that there were characteristics that I value in building like reliable software that, I feel good about running and scaling on teams, that I wanted to give it a shot. Like I saw traits of like Go in it, traits of OCaml in it, traits of Elixir in it. And I was like, okay, I worked in OCaml for 2 years, and like, if your viewers have never seen OCaml syntax, it is very different than most languages. It has no parentheses or brackets or anything like that. So it's kind of like Ruby or Python in that way, but it's a functional language. And like when I first took that job, I thought I was going to hate OCaml. I hated the look of the syntax. And then like I got like 2 or 3 days into learning it, and it's just like the syntax problem goes away. Like it just becomes second nature. You learn how to read it, you learn how to deal with it, and then getting the feeling for like the actual good semantics and the value these things provide, I think is like what really sold me. And sure enough, like the things I value from Go and those other languages are in effect, and that's what made me try it. And like, because the docs are still lacking for 3.0, like I think effect truly is the kind of thing that you need to build something real for. And like, it doesn't take very long for most people to get that. I see where this is going, see the value in this, and this isn't as weird as I thought it was or as hard as I thought it was.
Yeah, okay. For what it's worth, so one of my first blogging things was OCaml because I I was interviewing at Jane Street. And
Hell yeah.
where did you spend 2 years writing OCaml?
I was working at a company called Scalum, which isn't around anymore, but they were a institutional DeFi company. So basically connecting banks, venture funds, hedge funds to like DeFi trading markets.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's interesting how like finance firms always like to pick functional languages. It's not that bad. I mean, I'm looking at it again. It's Haskell, you know.
It really, OCaml was a thing that, because I had such a knee jerk reaction to its syntax at the start of the job, and then I really think learning OCaml has done the most for me as growing as an engineer and learning like how to build and think about software, like it was such an important job and an important learning experience for me. And like I think there are a lot of important properties of functional programming, and I don't think monads and jargon or functors or any of that is the important part of it. And like just being able to take those lessons and apply those to like TypeScript. And like I do a lot of Twitch streaming, and like whether it's a functional programming language or not, I think a big problem in the TypeScript ecosystem is that a large majority of devs only have really worked in TypeScript.
Hmm.
And I think taking a step outside your comfort zone and stepping into these other languages, whether it's Rust or C or Zig or Elixir or OCaml or Haskell, like learning the ideas in these other languages, I think are valuable, and it will make you a more well-rounded developer when you come back to working in TypeScript.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Everyone should work in a few different languages and settings to really broaden out as a programmer. Okay, I wanted to recurse back a little bit because um, I want to be like useful for others. Also, just like make sure we close loops and things. I put effect schema in there as like one of the top three, four things. Is that what you would say? And then
Yeah,
what's the
so
fourth
effect
thing?
schema is like integrated throughout the entire effect ecosystem.
Yeah, so you have no choice.
I mean, you can use Zod, like you could use Zod or Archetype. It would be fine, but like you might as well just use schema because it's doing the same things. I do think that like effect schema, the 3.0 APIs are some of the roughest APIs in effect, but effect 4.0 and schema 4.0 looks absolutely amazing. It's going to be in a repo called effect small. That's the like code name for 4.0. And like the schema 4.0 um, API, it is on par, if not better than like Zod and Valubot and all these things. One distinct thing that you'll see with effect schema that actually is starting to have influence on Zod and standard schema and Valubot is traditionally in TypeScript and Node, we really only think about decoding. So like going from JSON to an object, where effect schema thinks about encoding and decoding. So it's much more similar to like Rust's Serde or other ecosystems where you have to implement both sides of the codec, right? Like you have to do the encoding and the decoding. And that's a really, really powerful feature that I'm glad to see is starting to have influence on things like standard schema and Zod.
Okay. Well, we'll wait to see the 4.0 come out to think about that. We got type, layer, schema. What's another required knowledge thing to like
Um,
this stream, this concurrency? I mean, so the thing.
Probably fibers would be a good one to have a basic understanding of. Like fibers would be effects version of promises. And again, fibers are essentially the same kind of concurrency model that the React scheduler and runtime uses. They're comparable, like at a mental model level, to Go routines or Tokyo tasks or Elixir processes.
Okay, why do I have to know this? Isn't it just under the hood, like in implementation detail?
They can be exposed and you have a lot more control over concurrency. So there's things like built-in semaphores and mutexes and the things you would need, like synchronization primitives that you get in these other languages that you typically don't have to think about all that much in normal Node, unless you're doing like distributed applications where you're having to manage like mutex state and like Redis or something.
I was hoping that Kit Langton's thing would have some fiber stuff, but no.
So like a good one is like if you look at let's see here, maybe he has an effect dot all. If you do a find on that page for concurrency, yeah, you can see there the concurrency. Um, in the code sample, it's like effect dot all, and then it takes a second parameter that's an object, concurrency 2. So that will control like how many fibers spin up. You could set that to 1 and it would become sequential. You could set it to unbounded and it will run all of them concurrently. You could set it to 3 and it will only run 3 at a time. So like you don't necessarily need to know the Fiber API directly, but like having an understanding that like it's like promises plus plus because you get a lot more control over them is worth like digging into at some point.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. So it's almost like, okay, I wouldn't say fibers then. I would just say effects concurrency.
Yeah, that's probably more fair.
Yeah, like, okay, I'll just touch on observability and then, we don't have to go too long. But like, the streams things, you didn't mention any of these. So like, meh. Traits, meh. Behaviors, meh.
I I haven't thought of the word trait a single day that I've written effect. So I like that could be removed from the docs altogether. Like don't need to think about it.
I mean, anyone familiar with Rust will be like, oh, what the fuck is this? This is not the
It's
Rust.
like kind of the same idea, but yeah.
All right. And then yeah, so I do want to spend a little bit. So so obviously I've met Michael like 3 times. Uh, he actually used to introduce effects using the observability angle. He's like, how do you log things? What do you mean you don't log things when you make any? And he like, basically would just guilt you into using effects by saying you should log everything. And we're like, yeah. I mean, I know I should log things, but I don't. So like, is it solved? So do you just like log things everywhere and that's it?
I actually don't use that much logging compared to using tracing and spans and attributes on spans.
Huh.
I think whether you're using effect or not, like leveraging on good tracing and observability is like one of the keystones of making reliable software. So for everyone listening, if you're not familiar with open telemetry and tracing, I put that on your list to read up on. But I find that I get a lot more value in debugging out of traces and span attributes than I do logs. So
Yeah,
I favor
yeah.
that.
I'll even make the point like if you're piping things where you're like piping a series of things, then actually it's like the easiest way you'll ever do tracing and spans because it naturally wraps with this like with span thing. I mean, this makes intuitive sense.
Yeah, there is no easier way to integrate open telemetry in any ecosystem besides effect. Like it's just like you just do with span on any function you're on and you get tracing for free. It's
Yeah,
actually pretty remarkable.
I would say looking at this, it is still a bit more manual than I would like. I would like to set it up once in part of my code and then never think about it again. Whereas here,
Imagine a world where you just add a use span directive. Like at some point, like you need the runtime or a compiler to do something if you're not going to manually wrap functions.
well, no,
There's
no.
probably a real world there.
Well, no. Okay, let me push back on this. Right, you already have a concurrency manager, right? You're already managing like fibers and shit for me. Why isn't there like some kind of like central place where I configure the concurrency management so that it also logs and traces my spans?
Technically, you could do that. I think there is there's a new function called effect.function, which is effect.fn um, on.
Exporting span trace functions that return an effect. Okay, and then where do I set this up?
It would create a requirement on having like basically, I don't remember what the name, probably a span processor. So that Node SDK Live is literally just the open telemetry span processor that you provide via a layer, and you would give this to like the outermost part of your application. and
Yeah.
then you get treated.
Interesting. Okay, I'll bookmark this for like I'll explore this later. Okay, so effect service tree signal tail, and then effect.fn. Okay. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to establish like a little tech tree to go into. Okay. I think I covered like everything I kind of wanted to cover. There's obviously like I don't know. Do you have strong feelings about effect AI, effect micro, effect platform, myths?
I think the Effect AI stuff is really, really novel. And I think the way they leverage the dependency injection system to like be able to swap in and out tools and providers and stuff is like an incredibly cool and novel thing. That being said, I haven't done a lot with it. I've mostly been using AI SDK. Like I've wrapped AI SDK with Effect, which is very easy to do. But I definitely have an interest in using it because most of what I write anymore is Effect, and just getting that like getting the first class experience the whole way through um, your code is it feels really good.
Claude 37. Oh my god. Okay, so I have criticized effects indirectly here as well. Maybe people didn't realize I was criticizing effect, but my criticism is that basically the router should live at the infra layer, not inside of your application code base. You know what I mean? So you're saying like, oh, it like unifies the interfaces between OpenAI and Anthropic, all these, right? To make it easy to switch. But
Hmm.
like, why do that when you can have Vercel AI Gateway or Light LLM or Portkey or Open Router and those guys do it for you? Why should this live in your code base?
That you would have to have the Effect team make an argument for because I have not I am far further behind in the AI space than I should be.
Yeah, well,
The extent of like my application code level stuff has mostly been with AI SDK.
I think like so far, I spent maybe like an hour scanning through all this stuff. So far, haven't seen anything like super compelling except for like, yeah, this is the effect way to do things. But like, I think one criticism of effect is that it just like reinvents the universe inside of effect, right? And that's not a way to like play super nice with like everyone else. Obviously, you
I
don't.
would push back on that.
Yeah,
I would maybe agree with that on the AI module, but like if you're working in any real size like node backend application, like you're going to need things like telemetry and tracing, and you're going to need things like retry capabilities and all of these things. And what ends up happening across the board, we talked about when I started, is like you just have like five different implementations of all these things that are all subtly wrong. You are bringing in all of Cindersaurus's packages, and like Effect does play nice with the outside world. Integrating with outside code is very easy, and then calling or abstracting Effect code to be called from async await code is also very easy. I don't think there's a lot of maybe the world's reinvented, but it's reinvented consistently with the same patterns, and it's composable, and it just makes doing the right thing easy for building reliable software. That's like the biggest sell. And it guides you into a pit of success, which is the opposite of JavaScript and TypeScript as a language and ecosystem, unfortunately.
yeah. Did you ever see? This is like a very deep cut. There's like there was a time when promises were trying to be standardized in JavaScript. There's a lot of debate about what promises should do, and then um I forget what old school guy used to blog about this, but he was like JavaScript promises were a mistake because they're eager.
Yeah.
Did you
Kit
read this?
actually has a great video on this. Kit Langton, the same person that made that visual effects one,
Okay.
he
Really?
has a video on, he actually has a couple.
Okay.
He like goes over building a promise from scratch, and then talks about why eager async models can be problematic, and then he goes back and basically like builds up what not a fiber is, but like really the power behind effect is that it's lazy and it's powered by thunks. and he shows what that can unlock when you make async IO lazy. So let me drop that one. There it was. He's so very funny. So like even if you don't care about effect, a second thing ready to drop in, like it is the best explainer of like how promises work under the covers and how you would build one yourself or implement it. And it's just like a good engineering video with lots of humor. So
Love it. Okay. Yeah. By the way, I'm putting all these in the show notes and stuff, so people can actually click through and find out. Yeah. I'm having trouble finding out who it was, but it was like back when I was like, oh my god, this guy's hilarious. That's a great way to start. Okay. I'll watch a lot of these, but yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Very, very, very interesting that like these sentiments are shared by a lot of people. And but we have what we have. We have JavaScript, right? And we
it
need
is
to,
true.
yeah, we need to deal with that. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, like, look, I'm happy to leave it there. Like, obviously there's like just a lot of surface area to cover. Your like your expertise is like super vast, and like honestly, I'm like really impressed, but also like somewhat intimidated still. But you've done a lot to at least give some idea of like, well, here's like, you know, effect the good parts, and then also like here's the mindset that you need to come into effect, and I think that's better than what I have. Yeah, my use case immediately when I saw your sync thing was that I actually happen to scrape Twitter, Reddit, and Discord every day, and it's a pretty error prone.
Beautiful, perfect use case.
I know, and I have a lot of like really shitty concurrency management that is vibe code. I have a lot of
That's
really
the other
shitty.
thing.
Yeah,
Once you have like 3 or 4 modules in a code base of like effect, like you've written out like a couple services and have like some typical control flow, AI is insanely good at writing effect code. Like it's not good from the 0 to 1, but like the 1 to infinity, it is remarkably good at because the type system is so like rigid and strict and clear.
yeah.
And like it's yeah, AI is like stupid good once you have a little bit of code there.
Well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna like take this, like, like cat the whole thing. I put this into repo prompts, right? Prompt. And then I'll just like stick it in there as a prompt, and then it would just like write the code like you would write, and that'll be it. Right?
Boom, done.
Wait, what is the? Is this repo prompt? No, I need like what's one of them that like turns like a Git.
I don't know the names of them, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I can see the UI in my head.
Hey, I have this. So my Discord, we actually keep a running list of like all these tools, but right now I actually repo prompt is not it. It's I thought it was it. Anyway, so I can't find it, but like, like turn this into like a flat text file, paste it in as a prompt, and then just like, because you're just saying like the bootstrapping is the hardest part, but like, well, I can just steal yours, and that's it. Yeah, cool, amazing. Honestly, yeah, I like, again, I encountered effects before LLMs, and like it was intimidating, but like,
Mhm.
yeah, one benefit of LLMs, it should be that it is actually boilerplate is no longer a problem, and because it's verbose and explicit, then you know what you're doing. It's more
They
visible.
also have really good dev tools. So they have like a trace viewer integrated into VS Code. They have an LSP, which is probably one of the best LSPs that isn't like for like a language that I've ever used, like code gen stuff, visualizing your layers as like mermaid diagrams. So you get like this nice dependency tree as a mermaid diagram of what depends on what. Yeah, just like it's just a really good experience writing effect once you kind of get over the small hump of syntax.
Get over the hump. Okay, look, like, yeah, like you said, like But to really feel it, you have to write a few things in it and try to think about how you would do it without effects and then try to do it in effects. There's a bit of learning curve. There's plenty of resources out there. That's one of the things I like the most as someone outside of the community, is like seeing the community be so helpful and vocal about it. I mean, that's obviously what is required for anything like this to take off the ground. Anything else that you wanted to cover before we wrap?
Get it, yeah, get a taste of effect now while it's still 3.0, and figure out some of the patterns. And here in the next couple months, the APIs are getting slimmed down and named better, and effect 4.0 is looking really, really, really good. And like what effect needs to be if it will have mainstream traction. So I'm very much looking forward to effect 4.0, and you will inevitably see me tweeting all about it.
No, I love it that you've been so generous with your time. Let's I think like Michael obviously is like gonna be like the most like hype ever. Johannes gonna be the most bullish ever. Do you have a take on like where does this all end up? Right? Like is this like the new TypeScript?
I
The
wouldn't
you
call
know
it the new TypeScript. Like, some people like calling it a different language, but like I think that's just a knee-jerk reaction because like looking at the syntax
yeah.
is verbose, but like really it is just TypeScript and TypeScript types.
So
I
it
think
is
there's a
yeah.
real world where reaching for effect is the same. Reaching for effect would be the same for TypeScript developers as it would be for Ruby developers reaching for Ruby on Rails. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I like even tiny scripts, like I still start with effect because like I have tweets about this where like I will start work and I won't use effect. And then I end up creating a result type. And then I end up writing retry logic. And then I end up needing schemas. And it's like, dude, I should have just used effect from the get-go. And I just end up bringing it in and trimming down the amount of code I need to write by like 3x. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I mean, some part of that is you've been effects build, but the point of being effects build is you're actually thinking about the code well, instead of doing what JavaScript, uh, it, like it's like kind of sloppily designed. It's like trying to optimize for like the smallest possible syntax when actually that's not like what you really care about. You want to make sure your program works well. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think the Rails analogy is good. It's not great, because it is not a web framework. It doesn't have a database attached to it.
yeah,
So you know, I like I always obviously you can always reason from first principles. And like I do like to reason by analogy just because it helps to bootstrap and like place this in importance, and also like the sort of developmental roadmap of like other things that have happened before, right? If we're truly claiming that this has never happened before in human history and programming history, that's a very big claim, and I'm not sure we can make that claim here.
one way I like to think of it, like I still do think thinking of it as a standard library for TypeScript is the best way to think about it.
It is
And
literally on the landing page. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And
but
like,
it is not. I mean, like when you have fibers, it's like a little bit more than a library. It's more of a framework.
well, I like but my take there would be it's giving you a better solution than the eagerness and downsides it promises, right? Like you can still, for all intensive purposes, like treat fibers like promises and you're going to be fine and it's going to look exactly like using promises. But there's a bunch more there if and when you need it. Like there are web frameworks built into it. Like there's an HTTP API framework built in, obviously all the platform stuff, data structures built in, red black trees, graphs, tries, all of these things are there when you need it. And you don't have to bring in all these other NPM packages, especially over the past couple months as we've seen a lot of supply chain attacks in the NPM world. But
How does Effect solve supply chain attacks?
it's one package maintained by one team and company
Okay.
rather than having to bring in a bajillion NPM packages that may or may not be supported, do
Yeah.
not play nice together. Like obviously, like if somebody on the effect team that has access to NPM
Yeah, I'm
and
just saying that
right,
I just need to
but
compromise
you're
one.
you're decreasing your exposure because it's a single package compared to what the typical experience. Like my applications that I write in effect, the package JSON dependencies list is like 4 or 5 things instead of like 25 or 30.
I mean, that's encouraging. Yeah, I do think like it's weird like how programming ecosystems like they go to this like expand phase and then contract phase, and like this feels a little bit like a contract phase, um, in terms of like the number of dependencies and requirements. Cool. You've been so generous with your time. We went way over, but like
Dude, I would talk about this whenever, wherever, for however much
yeah.
time.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do my best to like be a friend of the ecosystem, and then I'll just like just gradually adopt this myself.
Hey, also, like, as you try it, like, seriously, feedback and criticism, like, that is what the team and the ecosystem needs. And, like, it's fair game. And, like, I think the Effect team has been very good at taking criticism and taking the paper cuts and the hard and weird
Yeah.
parts and putting on them. So that's also something that's made me feel good about picking it at Vercel is, like, even very early on, I watched them take criticism and watch them take feedback and APIs and watch them make changes and make improvements. So
So ambitious. So ambitious. I mean, I love it. Yeah, he has bigger guts than me for sure. All right, awesome. That's it.
awesome, man. Thank
Hope
you so
people
much
can
for
reach out to
having
you.
me.
Yeah, thank you for spending some time. Hopefully, whoever's watching also gets like a good like here's the intro from Dylan of like how you should think about it, filtered through my questions, which are hopefully not too annoying to people. But we indulge in some good side tangents. I have some good resources I can compile together, and maybe you can send this as collateral for whenever people ask you what to think as well.
Sweet. Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. All right, let me stop there.